The rain hammered my garage roof like bullets on tin, each drop a reminder that even the weather was out to get me. I was under the hood of a '67 Mustang at midnight, grease under my fingernails and bourbon on my breath, when I heard my 13-year-old daughter Lily screaming at her mother through the thin walls. Maybe if Dad was more like Uncle Joel, you wouldn't have to sneak out every night. I froze, wrench in hand. Uncle Joel, my wife's college buddy, who'd been circling our marriage like a vulture for months. The same Joel who'd tried to buy out my restoration shop last year, with his smug smile and designer suits. Lily, that's enough! Veronica's voice cut through the rain. My wife of 15 years, the ambitious attorney who used to laugh at my jokes, now sounded like she was addressing a hostile witness. I crawled out from under the Mustang, wiping my hands on an oil-stained rag. Through the window connecting my garage to our house, I could see them in the kitchen. Veronica, still in her power suit at midnight, looking guilty as sin. Lily, arms crossed, wearing that expression that said she knew exactly what buttons to push. Don't lie to me, Mom. I saw the texts on your phone. Joel this, Joel that. Dad's right here working his ass off while you're playing house with some rich asshole. The slap echoed through both the house and my chest. Veronica had never hit Lily before. Hell, she'd barely raised her voice until recently. Go to your room, now. I should have intervened. Should have marched in there and demanded answers. Instead, I lit a cigarette and watched my family implode through rain-streaked glass. Sometimes the truth hits you like a sledgehammer, and sometimes it seeps in slow like motor oil through concrete. This was the sledgehammer variety. My phone buzzed, a text from Veronica. Working late again, don't wait up. I glanced at the kitchen, empty. She'd already slipped out the back door. Working late, my ass, I muttered, taking a long drag. Next time, don't forget to leave the lights on for the burglar. But I wasn't talking about some random thief anymore. The next morning, Veronica was already gone when I stumbled into the kitchen for coffee. Her tablet sat on the counter, still logged into her email. She'd always been careless with technology, relying on me to fix her computer problems and update her passwords. I told myself I was just checking her calendar, maybe planning a surprise dinner to fix whatever was broken between us. But when I saw the encrypted messaging app she'd left open, my coffee went cold. Joel. Can't wait to see you tonight. Wear the red dress I bought you. Veronica. Alex is working late again. We have all night. Joel. Good. I have something special planned for my favorite lawyer. The messages went back months, hotel receipts, photos of Joel's penthouse apartment, details that made my stomach turn and my hands shake with rage. There was even a photo Joel had sent. His apartment's bedroom, expensive sheets turned down, champagne on ice. The caption read, "Your real home away from home." I scrolled through weeks of betrayal, each message a knife twist. They'd been planning this while I fixed her car, paid our mortgage, and pretended everything was fine. While I worked 16-hour days to keep my business afloat, she was playing house with a real estate mogul who wore $1,000 suits and drove a Tesla. The worst part? Joel was the same prick who'd offered to help me out by buying my garage for half its worth. Said I was struggling and he wanted to help an old friend. Now I knew why he wanted me gone. I screenshotted everything and emailed the evidence to myself. Then I sat in my kitchen, surrounded by the life I'd built, and planned my first move. That evening, I followed Veronica's Tesla to Joel's high-rise downtown. The building screamed money, all glass and steel, with a doorman who looked like he could bench press my Mustang. I parked across the street and waited. At 8:47 p.m., Veronica walked into the lobby wearing the red dress Joel had mentioned. She looked beautiful, confident, alive in a way I hadn't seen in years. It was like watching a stranger wear my wife's face. An hour later, I walked into the parking garage. Joel's white Tesla sat in a reserved spot marked J. Carter, Penthouse. The car was pristine, not a scratch on it. Just like Joel himself. Perfect, untouchable, better than everyone else. I pulled out my keys and dragged them along the driver's side, spelling out homewrecker in foot-tall letters. Then I slashed 2 tires and left a note under his windshield wiper. You park like you fuck, badly and in spaces that don't belong to you. A concerned citizen. I was walking back to my truck when the security guard appeared. Hey, stop right there. I kept walking, but I heard the camera click. The flash lit up the garage like lightning. Shit. The confrontation came at breakfast. Veronica stormed into the kitchen at 6 a.m., still wearing yesterday's clothes, waving a printout of the security photo. What the hell is this, Alex? I looked up from my coffee and eggs, studying the grainy image of me walking away from Joel's car. Looks like someone having a bad night. Coffee? Don't play dumb with me. The security guard identified you. Joel's pressing charges. Joel can press whatever he wants. I was getting dinner at Murphy's Diner. Got the receipt right here. I pulled out a crumpled receipt I'd grabbed after my little vandalism spree. Amazing what a $20 tip will get you. The waitress remembers me being there all evening. Veronica's face went white. She was a good lawyer, but I'd been planning this conversation all night. You're lying. Prove it. I stood up, towering over her 5'6" frame. But while we're talking about lying, maybe you want to explain why you're wearing yesterday's clothes? Working late at the office requires a lot of wardrobe changes these days. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For the first time in months, Veronica had nothing to say. That's what I thought. Your boyfriend's car got vandalized? Tough shit. Maybe he should park in his own neighborhood instead of trolling around married women. Alex, save it for someone who gives a damn. I grabbed my work jacket and headed for the door. Oh, and Ronnie? Next time you want to sneak around, maybe don't leave your tablet open. I'm a mechanic, not an idiot. The door slammed behind me hard enough to rattle the windows. But Joel wasn't done. 3 days later, he showed up at the school fundraiser. Lincoln Elementary's annual charity auction was supposed to be neutral ground. Parents bidding on art projects and bake sale items, teachers smiling through gritted teeth, kids running around hopped up on sugar. I was there because Lily had painted a landscape that was actually pretty good, and I wanted to support her. Joel arrived with Veronica on his arm like she was a trophy. He looked exactly like Central Casting's idea of a rich asshole. Silver hair, perfectly styled, expensive suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage, smile that said he owned everything he looked at, including my wife. They made the rounds, Joel glad-handing other parents, while Veronica played the part of devoted girlfriend. Nobody seemed to notice she was still wearing her wedding ring. I was standing by the punch bowl, watching this performance, when Joel approached. Alex, good to see you, buddy. He extended his hand like we were old friends. Sorry to hear about your car troubles the other night. What car troubles? Oh, I thought maybe your truck broke down. Veronica mentioned you were having mechanical problems. His smile was razor sharp. I'd be happy to recommend a good mechanic, someone who knows what they're doing. The insult hung in the air between us. Around us, other parents were starting to notice the tension. That's generous, Joel. But I prefer mechanics who don't need to buy their tools with stolen money. His smile faltered. Excuse me? You heard me. Some of us work for what we have instead of inheriting Daddy's real estate empire and calling it success. Joel stepped closer, lowering his voice. You're embarrassing yourself, Alex. And you're embarrassing Veronica. Maybe it's time to accept that some women need more than a grease monkey can provide. That's when I snapped. I didn't punch him. That would have been too easy, too expected. Instead, I grabbed the ladle from the punch bowl and accidentally splashed the entire contents across his $1,000 suit. Oops. Sorry about that, buddy. These hands aren't used to handling delicate things. Joel's face turned purple. You son of a bitch. He lunged at me, but anger made him clumsy. I sidestepped and watched him crash, face first into the refreshment table, sending cookies and cupcakes flying. He landed in a heap of frosting and broken paper plates, while 30 parents and their kids stared in shock. Joel! Veronica rushed to help him up, shooting me a look that could have melted steel. I straightened my jacket and addressed the crowd. Sorry, folks. Sometimes the trash takes itself out, but it makes a mess on the way. Principal Martinez appeared at my elbow. Mr. Mercer, I think it's time for you to leave. Already on my way. I found Lily in the crowd, her face a mixture of embarrassment and admiration. Good job on the painting, kiddo. Dad's proud of you. I walked out of that elementary school feeling better than I had in months, but I knew the real fight was just beginning. That night, I called Kate Morrison. Kate was Veronica's colleague at the law firm, and from what I'd overheard during dinner conversations, they hated each other's guts. Kate was brilliant, ambitious, and had been passed over for partner twice while Veronica climbed the ladder. If anyone had dirt on my wife, it would be her. Alex, this is unexpected. Kate's voice was cautious but curious. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Is Veronica screwing around? A long pause. Why are you asking me? Because you're the only person at that firm who doesn't kiss her ass. And because I think you know more than you're letting on. Another pause. Then, meet me tomorrow night. Rooftop bar at the Marriott downtown. 9 o'clock. Come alone. The line went dead. The Marriott's rooftop bar was exactly the kind of place Kate would choose. Expensive enough to keep out the riffraff, dark enough for private conversations, and public enough that nobody would suspect conspiracy. I found her at a corner table, nursing a martini and watching the city lights. Kate Morrison was everything Veronica wasn't. Brunette where my wife was blonde, subtle where Veronica was flashy, calculating where Veronica was impulsive. She wore her ambition like expensive perfume, noticeable but not overwhelming. You look like hell, Alex. Thanks. You always know how to make a guy feel special. I signaled the waitress for a whiskey. So, are we going to dance around this all night, or are you going to tell me what you know? Kate smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Your wife is sleeping with Joel Carter, but you already knew that. What I want to know is how deep it goes. Deeper than you think. Kate opened her purse and pulled out a manila folder. Joel's been funneling city contracts through shell companies. Veronica's been handling the legal paperwork and taking a cut. They've stolen about $200,000 in the past 6 months. I opened the folder. Bank statements, email printouts, copies of contracts. Enough evidence to destroy both of them. Why are you giving me this? Kate's smile turned predatory. Because Veronica screwed me over on the Patterson case last year, stole my research, presented it as her own work, and got the promotion I deserved. I've been waiting for the right moment to return the favor. So this is revenge. This is justice. Your wife thinks she's untouchable because she's sleeping with the right people. Time to prove her wrong. I studied the documents. Everything looked legitimate, but something felt off. What do you want in return? I want to watch her fall, and I want Joel to go down with her. We shook hands across the table. I should have known then that I was making a deal with the devil. But sometimes the devil offers exactly what you need. The next phase of my plan required breaking into Joel's apartment. Kate's cousin Danny was a locksmith who owed her money, and for $500 cash, he was willing to teach me some basic skills and provide the tools. You sure about this, man? Danny asked as he handed me a set of picks. Breaking and entering is serious shit. I'm not stealing anything, just want to leave a message. 3 nights later, I stood outside Joel's building at 2 a.m. The doorman was asleep, the security cameras had convenient blind spots, and Joel was out of town on business. Kate had checked his calendar. Getting into his apartment was easier than I'd expected. Rich people always think money makes them safe. But locks are locks, and I'd spent enough time fixing things to understand how they worked. Joel's penthouse was everything I'd imagined. Leather furniture, expensive art, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was the kind of place that screamed, "I'm better than you," in a dozen different languages. I didn't steal anything. Instead, I made the kind of mess that would take weeks to clean up and cost thousands to repair. I put dead fish in the air vents, poured maple syrup in his expensive coffee machine, and used permanent marker to write "Homewrecker" across his bedroom wall. Then I took photos of everything and uploaded them to a dozen different social media accounts. But the real masterstroke was the evidence I planted. Kate had given me copies of Joel's financial records, and I left them scattered across his desk like he'd been reviewing them. When the police eventually searched his apartment, they'd find everything they needed to build a case. I was back home by 4 a.m., and by 6 a.m., Joel's apartment building's fire alarm was going off. Someone had called in a gas leak. The next morning brought chaos. Joel's social media accounts were flooded with photos of his trashed apartment. The fish smell had spread through the building's ventilation system, forcing an evacuation. And somehow, copies of his financial records had found their way to the city attorney's office. My phone rang at 8 a.m. Alex, we need to talk. Veronica sounded scared. About what? Joel's apartment was broken into. The police want to question you. Why would they want to question me? I was home all night. You can ask Lily. Don't play games with me. I know you did this. Prove it. I was getting tired of that phrase. But it worked every time. Besides, it sounds like your boyfriend has bigger problems than vandalism. Word is the city's investigating his business practices. Silence on the other end. How did you know about that? Lucky guess. Or maybe Joel's not as smart as he thinks he is. I hung up and poured myself a cup of coffee. Phase 2 was complete. But Kate had one more surprise for me. We met that evening at a diner across town, the kind of place where the coffee was strong and the conversations were private. There's something else you need to know, Kate said, sliding another folder across the table, about Veronica and Joel. What now? Joel isn't her only affair. I opened the folder and felt the world shift beneath me. Photos, emails, hotel receipts, but not with Joel, with Kate. Surprise, Kate said, watching my face. Your wife swings both ways, and I've been playing the long game. The photos were explicit, intimate, recent. Veronica and Kate in hotel rooms, restaurants, Kate's apartment. They'd been seeing each other for over a year. Joel was just a distraction, Kate continued. Veronica needed a beard, someone obvious you'd focus on, while she and I worked behind the scenes. We've been planning this for months. My hands were shaking. Planning what? Your destruction. The garage, the house, your reputation. We want it all. Veronica gets half in the divorce. I get the satisfaction of watching you lose everything, and Joel, well, Joel was always expendable. I stared at the photos, trying to process the betrayal. It was bigger than I'd imagined, more complex, more personal. Why are you telling me this? Kate's smile was pure poison. Because the plan changed. Veronica decided she wants to keep you around as a pet. Broken, humiliated, but useful? I prefer complete destruction. She leaned across the table. So, here's my offer. Help me destroy them both, and I'll make sure you walk away with something. Refuse, and I'll make sure you lose everything anyway. I looked at the woman across from me, brilliant, beautiful, and completely insane. She'd been manipulating all of us from the beginning, playing puppet master while we danced to her tune. But she'd made one mistake. She'd underestimated me. I spent the next week playing the part of the broken husband. I moped around the house, drank too much, and let Veronica think she was winning. Meanwhile, I was planning the kind of revenge that would make Machiavelli proud. Kate thought she was the puppet master, but she'd forgotten that I'd been fixing broken things my whole life. And when something's broken, sometimes you have to take it apart completely before you can understand how it works. The first step was gathering my own evidence. I installed hidden cameras in my house. Legal, since it was my property. I recorded every conversation, every phone call, every moment of Veronica's arrogance as she planned my destruction. I also hired a private investigator to follow Kate. If she was playing games, I wanted to know all the rules. What I discovered was beautiful in its simplicity. Kate had been embezzling money from the law firm for 2 years. She'd been using Veronica's access codes and Joel's business accounts to cover her tracks, setting them up as the fall guys while she built a nest egg in the Cayman Islands. The affair with Veronica was real, but it was also strategic. Kate needed inside information about the firm's security protocols and client accounts. Joel was the perfect patsy, rich, arrogant, and careless with his business records. But Kate's real plan was even more ambitious. She wanted to destroy the law firm entirely, taking down everyone who'd ever passed her over for promotion. Veronica and Joel were just the beginning. I had to admire the scope of her ambition. It was the kind of long-term thinking that separated the amateurs from the professionals. Too bad she'd picked the wrong mark. The confrontation happened on a Friday night at my father's old cabin by the lake. I'd told each of them separately that I wanted to negotiate a peaceful resolution to our problems. Kate thought I was surrendering. Veronica thought I was begging. Joel thought he was coming to gloat. They were all wrong. The cabin was perfect for what I had planned. Isolated, private, and far enough from civilization that nobody would hear the screaming. Kate arrived first, confident and predatory. Smart choice, Alex. This doesn't have to be ugly. Oh, it's going to be ugly, I said, pouring her a glass of wine, but not the way you think. Veronica came next, dressed like she was going to a business meeting. She barely looked at me, treating me like hired help. Let's get this over with, she said. I have plans tonight. Joel was last, strutting into the cabin like he owned it. He'd replaced his vandalized Tesla with a new Porsche, and his suit probably cost more than most people made in a month. Alex, good to see you're being reasonable about this. I waited until they were all seated around the old wooden table where my father used to play poker with his friends. Then, I locked the door and pulled out my laptop. Before we start negotiating, I thought you might want to see something. I opened the first video file. Kate and Veronica in a hotel room, discussing how to transfer money from Joel's accounts. The audio was crystal clear. What the hell is this? Joel's face went white. Evidence, I said calmly. Keep watching. The next video showed Kate in her office, hacking into the firm's computer system. Then, Veronica forging documents. Then, Joel taking bribes from city contractors. You've all been very busy, I said. Kate, I particularly enjoyed the part where you explained how you were going to frame Joel and Veronica for your embezzlement scheme. Very creative. Kate's composure finally cracked. You son of a bitch. And Veronica, the conversation where you laughed about how stupid I was, that was my personal favorite. Really captured your personality? My wife's face had gone from white to green. Alex, I can explain. No need. I heard everything I needed to hear. Joel stood up, his hands shaking. You can't use any of this. It's illegally obtained. Maybe, but I don't need it for court. I closed the laptop and smiled. I need it for something much more effective. I pulled out my phone and opened the live stream app I'd set up. Say hello to your colleagues, friends, and family. We're broadcasting live to about 300 people right now, including everyone at your law firm, Joel's business partners, and Kate's mother. The silence in the cabin was deafening. You see, I learned something important from all of you. Reputation is everything. Destroy someone's reputation and you destroy their life. So let's destroy some reputations. I turned to face the camera. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to 3 of the most corrupt, lying, backstabbing pieces of shit you'll ever meet. What followed was 15 minutes of the most brutal public humiliation I've ever witnessed. I played audio recordings, showed photographs, and detailed every aspect of their betrayal and criminality. Kate tried to run first, but I'd locked the door and hidden the key. Veronica started crying, begging me to stop, promising to make things right. Joel threatened to sue me, then tried to bribe me, then started crying himself. The live stream viewer count kept climbing. 300 became 500, then 1,000, then 2,000. People were sharing the link, commenting, recording their own videos of my video. By the time I ended the broadcast, their lives were effectively over. The door's unlocked now, I said, tossing the key on the table. You're free to go, but I wouldn't recommend showing your faces in this town anymore. Kate was the first to leave, her face a mask of rage and defeat. This isn't over, Alex. Yeah, it is. Joel stumbled out next, muttering about lawyers and lawsuits that we both knew would never happen. Veronica was last. She stood in the doorway, looking back at me with something that might have been regret. I loved you once, she said. I know. That's what makes this so satisfying. She left without another word. I sat alone in my father's cabin watching the lake in the moonlight and opened a beer. My phone was buzzing with calls and messages, but I ignored them all. Tomorrow there would be consequences, investigations, legal proceedings, probably a divorce that would get very ugly very quickly. Kate would try to salvage something from the wreckage. Joel would flee to whatever country didn't have extradition treaties. Veronica would probably try to blame everything on her co-conspirators. But tonight, I had won. The aftermath was even more spectacular than I'd hoped. By Monday morning, the live stream video had been viewed over 50,000 times. Local news stations picked up the story. The law firm fired both Kate and Veronica, and the State Bar Association opened an investigation. Joel's business partners froze his assets and kicked him out of the company. I became a local celebrity, the wronged husband who'd exposed corruption and adultery in one devastating broadcast. People bought me drinks at Murphy's Diner and asked for selfies at the grocery store. But the real satisfaction came from watching their individual destructions. Kate tried to flee to the Cayman Islands, but the FBI was waiting at the airport. Turns out, embezzling money and moving it offshore is a federal crime. She was looking at 10 to 15 years in prison. Joel's new Porsche was repossessed on Tuesday. His penthouse was seized by the city on Wednesday. By Friday, he was living in a motel and working at a car wash. The mighty had fallen hard. Veronica lasted the longest. She hired a crisis management firm, gave interviews claiming she was the real victim, and tried to paint me as an abusive husband who'd driven her into the arms of other people. Nobody bought it. The final confrontation happened at the annual Founders Day Festival downtown. The whole city turns out for the event. Families, local politicians, business owners, everyone who matters in our little corner of the world. I was manning the booth for my restoration shop, enjoying the attention and the business that came with being the town's most famous revenge story. My appointment book was full for the next 6 months. That's when Veronica showed up. She looked terrible, thin, pale, desperate. The confident attorney who'd once commanded every room she entered was gone, replaced by a broken woman in a cheap dress and discount store shoes. Alex, please, we need to talk. Nothing to talk about, Ronnie. You made your choices. I'm broke. The firm is suing me for restitution. I can't find another job. Nobody will even return my calls. I looked up from the carburetor I was rebuilding for display. Sounds like a personal problem? I'm your wife. You're my ex-wife. Divorce was finalized yesterday. Didn't your lawyer tell you? Her face crumpled. You can't do this to me. I'll lose everything. Already did. House is mine, car is mine, business is mine. You get to keep your half of our joint debt, which comes to about $30,000 in credit card bills. Congratulations. A crowd was starting to gather. People love a good show, especially when it involves local celebrities. Veronica must have realized we had an audience because she straightened up and tried to project her old authority. You think you've won. You destroyed 3 lives for what? Revenge? You're pathetic, Alex. A small, petty man who couldn't handle being married to someone better than him. I stood up slowly, wiping my hands on a rag. The crowd pressed closer, sensing drama. You're right about one thing, Ronnie. I am petty. Petty enough to record every conversation we had in the past month, including the one where you admitted to stealing money from your clients to pay for your affairs. Her confidence evaporated. You're bluffing. I pulled out my phone and played a 30-second clip of Veronica's voice. Took the money from the Henderson account to pay for the hotel room. Alex is too stupid to check the statements anyway. The crowd murmured. Someone started recording with their phone. The State Bar Association was very interested in that particular recording, I continued, along with the one where you talked about falsifying documents and the one where you laughed about how you were going to leave me homeless. Veronica looked around at the faces surrounding us. Neighbors, former friends, people who'd once respected her. Now they looked at her like she was something they'd scrape off their shoes. You want to know the difference between us? I asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. You thought you were better than everyone else. I just proved you were wrong. She tried one last time. Alex, please. For Lily's sake. Lily's living with my sister in Portland. She asked to change her name so she wouldn't be associated with you. Even your own daughter thinks you're poison. That broke her. Veronica started crying, deep, ugly sobs that shook her whole body. But I felt nothing. No pity, no regret, no satisfaction. Just emptiness, where love used to live. She stumbled away through the crowd, and I never saw her again. Joel appeared at my booth an hour later. He looked even worse than Veronica, unshaven, wearing clothes that had seen better days, smelling like desperation and cheap cologne. The car wash job hadn't lasted long. Alex, I need to talk to you. Make it quick. I've got customers waiting. He glanced around nervously, then leaned closer. I'm leaving town. tonight. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry for everything. Sorry doesn't fix anything, Joel. I know, but I needed to say it. He pulled out a crumpled envelope. This is everything I have left. About $300. It's not much, but I pushed the envelope back toward him. Keep it. You'll need it more than I will. He stared at me for a moment, then nodded. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just disappear and stay disappeared. Joel walked away, shoulders slumped, carrying everything he owned in a single duffel bag. The man who'd once owned half the city was now just another failure with a bus ticket to nowhere. As the sun set over the festival, I packed up my booth and counted the day's earnings. Business was good, better than it had been in years. Turns out, being the guy who exposed corruption and adultery was great for marketing. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Saw the news coverage. Proud of you, Dad. Can't wait to visit next month. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Maybe I hadn't won everything, but I'd won the things that mattered. Kate, Veronica, and Joel had tried to destroy me, thinking I was just another mark to be manipulated and discarded. They'd underestimated the power of patience, planning, and pure, vindictive satisfaction. I climbed into my restored Mustang and drove home through the quiet streets of a town that now knew my name for all the right reasons. The house was empty but peaceful, filled with the promise of new beginnings and second chances. In the movies, the hero gets the girl and rides off into the sunset. But this wasn't that kind of story. This was the story of a villain's requiem, a symphony of revenge played in perfect harmony, with every note hitting exactly where it was supposed to hurt. I'd lost a wife, gained some enemies, and discovered that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad or getting even. Sometimes the best revenge is getting everything. As I pulled into my driveway, I lit a cigar and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, 3 people were learning that actions have consequences, that betrayal has a price, and that underestimating a small-town mechanic was the biggest mistake of their lives. I'd given them exactly what they deserved, and I'd done it with style. Villains don't get happy endings. We get something better. We get the last laugh.